Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Today, as you know, we are going to go over many pieces of this larger research program on NGA West 2. There will be people who are connected already. Jose told me about 12 people already connected by internet. Internet participants, if you have questions, you have to send an email to Christine Goulet. This is the email address on the screen, and Christine is going to read it for us. Let's start. I'm going to give you an overview of the project, and then we'll go over the database, then site response, lots of pieces of this. This has been a large research project. As you recall, I have only one slide for the background. As you recall, we had a project NGA West. Now we call it NGA West 1 to don't get confused. In 2003, we started that project. We compiled a large database of recorded ground motions at shallow crustal earthquakes in active tectonic regions. We had several supporting projects, and in 2008, we developed 5 attenuation models or ground motion prediction equations, and USGS in 2008 adopted NGA West 1 GMPEs. You are going to hear this GMPEs hundreds of times today. So GMPE is ground motion prediction equation. It's attenuation model. So USGS adopted these GMPEs for the national hazard maps. So literally any design that is based on the building code or site-specific in the Western US, really every design has been affected by NGA West 1 project. After we finished NGA West 1 in 2008, then we found out that there are more issues, as always, more issues, more ground motions, and so on. So we started NGA West 2, which is really a follow-up study of NGA West 1. Before I go to the details, I want to acknowledge the sponsors of the project. California Earthquake Authority has been really supportive, financial supporter of the project. We really appreciate their support. Caltrans has been a partner with PEER since a decade ago or decade and a half ago on Lifelines program. And PG&E started supporting PEER even before PEER officially started. PEER started officially in 1997. PEER Lifelines program with PG&E support and Lloyd Clough support started in 1996, 1 year even before that. So PG&E has been a partner with PEER since the year -1. So we really appreciate support of CEA, Caltrans, and PG&E. Now, NGA West 2, like other projects that we have, we call them mega projects. So this is a large project with several sub-projects underneath. I'm going to go over the sub-projects underneath of NGA West 2. The first and one of the most important tasks in NGA West 2 was to update recorded ground motion in active tectonic regions, shallow crustal earthquakes. In 1997, when PEER started, this is what we had, is a lot of the magnitude versus distance. These were the recordings that we had it in 1997. In NGA West 1, we added the red dots into the plot. The size of database grew a lot. This was the database, combination of blue and red. This was the database that we used in NGA West 1 to develop all the GMPEs. Then in NGA West 2, this is what we added. It is amazing amount of the effort and amount of the data added to the database. The size of the database increased by a factor of 5.5. From 2008 to 2013, we added so much data from the large magnitude, moderate magnitude, and small magnitude. Overall, in NGA West 2, we have more than 9,000 3-component recordings, so it means 57,000 records in the database. And Each of these records, one by one, has been processed, going through elaborated record processing and computation and so on. It wasn't just mass production. One of them, it was very labor intensive, but definitely is very, very important for the community. So just to make sure that I'm not overwhelmed you with all the small magnitude data, so I excluded small magnitude data in this plot. This is what you see. We had it in NGA West 1 for moderate and large magnitude, and this is what we have now in NGA West 2. So NGA West 2 is collection of all these colors. Huge database. I truly believe this is the largest uniformly processed database in the world. So some few key features of the database. After me, Tim Ancheta, who worked day and night on the database, is going to go over the detail of that. I just show you the highlight of the issues and things. These are just few examples of the earthquakes and recordings that we added to the database. Several very well recorded earthquakes in Japan were added to the database. Elmire Kukupa 2010 magnitude 7.2, 238 records were added. Then obviously Wenchuan magnitude 7.9. In Italy, several earthquakes in Italy have been added. The latest data that we have is from Christchurch, New Zealand 2011. We have almost complete set of records. Obviously, we have the previous one in Darfield, New Zealand also. The largest magnitude that we have is 7.9 from Wenchuan, as well as obviously previously had it from Alaska, but Wenchuan is more well recorded. Some major changes from previous database to the new database. As I mentioned previously, we had about 3,500 recordings, 3 component each. Now we have 19,400, 3 component each. Previously, we had it only for 5% damping. Now in NGA West 2, we have from 0.5% all the way to 30% damping, 11 damping values. And we are trying also to go to 20 seconds if the record is not noisy and is reliable. One change that we made, we switched, if you recall, the ground motion prediction equations attenuation models were based on GMROT-I50. That was a concept, is close to the geometric mean of 2 horizontal components. Now we are switching to ROT-DNN. ROT-DNN, in summary, is a simple concept. Dave Bohr wrote a paper a couple of years ago. Basically, you rotate the 2 horizontal components 1 degree at a time, and you find the minimum, and you find the maximum, and you find the 50th percentile of that. And that is the number that we are going to use in attenuation model. When you put everything in the pot, the results are very close in terms of ROT-D50 as well as GMROT-I50. But for individual pairs of horizontal components, they are different. But overall, they are close. So why did we do that? It was motivated by building code, our friends in the building code community, that after 2008, they switched to maximum rotated component. That maximum rotated component is basically ROT-D100. So now we are at least in the same family. So we use ROT-D50, they use for ROT-D100, which there are some relationship that Jack Baker later today is going to show. But previously it was hard to, not hard, but it was a little bit out of phase to use GMROT-I. ROT-D50 is basically 50 percentile. The building code community, they use ROT-D100, and there is a relationship between these two. Now, I showed you lots of records and small magnitude because people ask, why do you care about magnitude 3, 4, and so on? There was reasons for that. First of all, after we published 2008 models, GMPEs, NGA West 1, when we discovered that we were over-predicting the ground motion for a small magnitude. Obviously now, we are shaving that over conservatism, over prediction of the small magnitude. Then there is advantage also to collect all these small magnitude data. In the future, we can analyze recorded ground motions at the same site from different earthquakes. We have to go to a small magnitude if you want to do that. We don't have magnitude 7 and 8 every day at the same station. So we have to go to a small magnitude to find out the specific characteristic site variability at a specific site. That is for the future work. And also, after we were done with NGA West 1, we discovered that in the other parts of the world that they have only a small magnitude recordings. When they compared it to NGA West 1 models, they found out that obviously we were over-predicting, and occasionally they were trying to adjust these things in an incorrect way. It became serious technical issues. Now, since we have a small magnitude, if someone wants to check with the local small magnitude, they can immediately do that. Magnitude scaling, this is the part really that we are now shaving. We were over-conservative, over-predicting the small magnitude scaling. Not with the data that we have, we are taking care of that. So once we have the database that is completed, and the database, as I mentioned, is very important, is very labor intensive. Many people digged into that in our community. Obviously, you find errors, you find inconsistency. But once you are done, really is extremely important for the entire community in the world. They use it on daily basis. So once we have the database, we take advantage of other supporting projects on directivity of ground motion, hanging wall, footwall, new model we have. We have an updated nonlinear soil response model. We have a new classification of the main shock versus aftershock, and you will see the details of all of this is on directivity, hanging wall model, update of nonlinear soil response, new classification. Today you are going to see detailed presentation on this. So once we have the database and the supporting projects, then we have updated our ground motion prediction equation attenuation model for horizontal ground motion. The other task is still ongoing. We are going to have GMPEs for vertical component. As you know, we always, in the last several years, have been working under NGA on the horizontal components. And this plot is several years old, but the concept is still the same. It's the ratio of vertical over horizontal. The ratio exceeds the value that practitioners used to use a 2/3 value at short period, and the ratio is less than 2/3 at longer period. I strongly recommend don't use 2/3 to scale horizontal to get vertical. It doesn't have any scientific basis, and it can be unconservative, can be over-conservative. So anyway, we are going to have GMPs for vertical ground motion under NGA West 2. The other task, as you know, all the GMPs attenuation models that we have had it in many years were a reference damping value 5%. It has nothing to do with the real world. It's a reference number. We could go to 3%, 2%, and so on. But again, for practical reasons, the classical work of Newmark and so on still has been used by many people around the world. So we dig into that. We have very good model to scale attenuation models from 5% to go down all the way to 0.5%, and you go up all the way to 30%. Sanaz Rezaian at USGS, she's going to give you a presentation on that. That task is already done. The peer report is published. You can download free of charge. Even if you want Excel file, MATLAB routine, and so on, we can send it to you. Contact me or Sanaz. Directivity of ground motion, obviously in NGA West 1, we didn't explicitly include directivity. It was part of the pot, and obviously, especially for the active tectonic regions, especially for like California, lots of important cities and faults and structures close to the faults. So the directivity is important. We have a working group. Paul Sputic is in charge of a working group. He's going to show you the 5 directivity directivity models that the working group developed. The directivity models include broadband directivity, like 1997 Somerville and others, as well as narrowband. So you're going to see the details of that in a presentation by Paul Sputic. Directionality of ground motion, as I mentioned, our friends in the building code community, they switched to maximum rotated motion. So that became a little bit, we wanted to understand the ratio of the maximum over what we use in our attenuation model. Is it function of magnitude, distance, and so on? What is the uncertainty behind it? So Jack Baker and his group digged into that. Jack is going to give a presentation about directionality, at what angle you get the maximum component. Is it function of distance, or when you go a little bit far from the fault, 10, 15 kilometers, possibly it becomes even random. He's going to show you the detailed result. Epistemic uncertainty, that we want to make sure that model-to-model variability we have in NGA models is meaningful. We are going to have epistemic uncertainty model for NGA, but in order to finish that task, we need the final models. That's why they're still working on that. And by end of January, they are going to have an epistemic uncertainty model. Site response, very important topic. We found out that the site amplification out of Neher factors, these are the factors, as you know, that are in the building code. These Neher factors are not, sometimes are not the same as what we get out of the NGA. So John Stewart and a very large group started digging into this issue, and they are now making recommendations about changing the Neher factors. This is really big. The entire building code will be affected by this. That's why it's a combination of the science as well as consensus building. It's a big task, very important task. John Stewart, after Tim, is going to talk about that issue. Status of the project. Some tasks are totally done. Their final reports have been drafted. The final reports are being reviewed, and comments are being incorporated. These include the database, damping, scaling, directivity, directionality, and site response. These are almost complete. The reports are being reviewed by external and internal reviewers, and by end of January, we have the final reports for the public. Draft of ground motion prediction equations for horizontal components we have now. We distributed a few days ago to our internal and external reviewers and to USGS. One of the key end users of all of our projects is the USGS for the national hazard maps, because they are going to adopt what we develop, and they are going to develop the national hazard maps, and everything else beyond that really is based on the national hazard maps. So all the building code and site-specific analysis and design. So it's like chain reaction. Everything else is based on that. So we just have to make sure that the USGS, as a key end user of these things, is reviewing these things. They are going to tell us their feedback, anything that they see, and we love to hear from them and from the community, that if the combination of this and that parameter, it looks strange, let us know. We go back, we dig into that, and we are going to either verify it or we are going to revise it. We are really open. This is the first time that we are sharing it with the public, and we'll really like to hear from all of you. If you see anything that either you don't understand, or you have a question, you have a comment, contact us. We love to hear from you. Then the final report of the horizontal and vertical GMPEs, as well as the epistemic uncertainty, we are going to send it to sponsors and reviewers by end of January 2013. Then they will have 1 month to give us comments. So by end of February, we have all the comments from everyone, and then we have 45 days. These are all in the contract that we have. In 45 days, it means by April 15, tax day, we are going to publish everything for the public. And the same day, we are going to post the flat files, the database that has been used by the ground motion prediction equation developers. We are going to post it at peer website. The concept is this. If we used a database for our attenuation model, everyone else in the world, if they use the same database and they use the same functional form, they should come up with something that we have. So nothing is secret. Everything is public. We are going to post all the flat files on April 15 that everyone will have access. And then after that, as you know, we have a website which is very, very busy website, and people really on hourly basis, they download the records. We are going to update that website based on various combination of the magnitude, distance, VS30, and other things. You can download the actual time series. That will come after that, because we need IT person and so on to update the website. But the flat files will be ready on April 15. So the purpose of today's workshop, which is our first public workshop, is to show you what we see in the data, what we have done, and we really like to get comments from you in this meeting as well as after this meeting. Send us an email. We really love to get feedback from you. Many people have been involved in NGFS2. This was not a single person sitting in the back cubicle and run all of these things. Many, many, many people. I'm not going to read the names, but we had technical coordination committee. We had external oversight committee. We had funding agency representatives that they were attending all of our meetings. And many other people. And I'm not going to read these things. And these fellows work literally day and night on various pieces, on database, on development of the attenuation models, damping, vertical, directivity, directionality, epistemic uncertainty, site response. Literally tens of people work on this project. This is my last slide. And before I switch to the next speaker, I want to tell you this was really like putting together several hundreds of small pieces of a very complicated puzzle together through interactions and technical teamwork. And before I switch to next speaker, I really want to thank all people who worked really day and night on this project with dedication and doing a world-class job. We really appreciate your work. And thank you very much for your attention. Now we are going to switch to the details of each pieces that I mentioned to you. The next speaker is Tim Ancheta. Tim spent hundreds of hours every day on ground motion database, really. And Tim was not alone. Many people supported the team on various pieces. He's going to give you an overview of the database. After Tim, if you have any questions, we'll cover the question, then we'll go to John Stewart. Thank you very much. Tim. Very good. Thanks.